Tua to a wide open Williams. He leaps and he's in. Touchdown Miami. Murray has got elite quickness. How about his deep ball? Looking for Kirk. He's got him. Touchdown.
Two of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL duking it out. Kyler Murray, Tua Tagovailoa. Tua gets the edge. We talked about that. We call that. We'll peacock here in a bit. We like this opening as our peacock session here on the Game Day podcast. Adam Kramer at Kegs and Eggs. Marcus Mosher, Marcus_Mosher. Marcus, we like the Dolphins. We thought it would be a close game. We've been glowing about these young quarterbacks. We're going to do it again. Can't wait for our debate here. I'm really interested to see who you pick. But what were your thoughts on the Dolphins and Tua specifically with what we saw?
Yeah, first of all, congratulations. That was our big bet of the week, was taking the Dolphins, not only the points, but we like the money line, over the Cardinals in that game. And it worked out. It was a really fun game. I really wish it would have been the primetime game. I know everybody else was subject to the Cowboys and Steelers, but this game between two really fun quarterbacks, both wearing number 1, you don't see that very often in the NFL. A lot of fun. So if you haven't seen it yet, go back, use NFL Game Pass. And watch it, because, man, that was one of the better games of the year so far.
It was. And we were right. We were wrong a little bit. We were right. We're going to be right. And whether we're right or wrong, you can follow us here, Game Day, across social media, and you can listen to this podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We're really excited to dig in. Again, a really fun debate this week. First, second-year quarterbacks, who do you have? And again, I'm ready to pick your brain. I know you're ready now to make fun of me, specifically with one of my picks, as we look at how we did last week. Each of us 2-3. Marcus, you're 9-7 on the season. I am just 2-3. What were your general thoughts on your picks and your just main takeaways from the weekend?
Yeah, we got creamed by some of these older quarterbacks that were favorites, right? Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger. We expected both of those guys to take care of business. Didn't happen. The Steelers had to fight for their lives against Dallas. They barely won that game, let alone cover that 13.5-point spread. And then Tom Brady out there in Tampa against New Orleans. Oof,
that was bad.
One was bad. I don't feel so bad about the Russell Wilson, and the Seahawks -2.5 against Buffalo. That was a good team. It, went back and forth for a while. It happens. But the other two ones, those ones were bad. Those ones really made me sweat it out.
I was good. Buffalo was probably my crowning achievement, right? Like, I felt good about that. Wild game. And the totals this week, by the way, kind of reflect what we're seeing. They feel like Big 12 totals that you'll see. Look, Phillip Rivers, I'm going to just let me have it, okay? I thought about
listen,
you.
Here's the thing. I told you last week, I said I'm going to be texting you during the game, like halfway between it, to see how you felt about betting on Phillip Rivers. And we didn't even have to get to halftime in this one before he was laying on his back, reaching for a defender. Oh man, Adam, I'm sorry. Just tell me you're not going to do this again, right? You're not going to bet on Phil Rivers again, right?
Buddy, you just wait. That's all I'm saying. It's a tease. He is the most giftable quarterback in college or in the NFL. No, like the most giftable, memeable. Like, that was an amazing sequence of him. It looks like he was being electrocuted on a football field. They're laying on his back.
Can I tell you my favorite point of that game? It was right before halftime. The Colts had the ball at Baltimore's 45, 46-yard line, and they're about to attempt a Hail Mary. And Phillip Rivers couldn't even throw it. They had to take him off the field to put Jacoby Brissett to throw the Hail Mary. And, of course, he was sacked because he can't move at all. It was just a comedy of errors in Indianapolis.
That was my team. It's like when you bring in the kicker that could kick the 55-yarder or something. That's not a good situation to be in. However, spoiler alert, I may do it again because I like pain.
Adam.
I know. We'll just wait. It's kind of a tease, although I've blown the tease. Trends. Straight up this year, home team 65, 67-1. The week prior, 60, 58-1. So a little bit of progress, pretty much holding serve there. Against the spread, home team 62-71. Yikes. 55, 64-0 the week prior. So again, about the same. And then the over-unders, we talked about this last week, Marcus. I talked about it a little bit this week in some of my stock up, stock down. Over 71-60, 62-55 heading into the week. It was really good, right? Especially that Sunday afternoon slate. The overs were on fire. I've thought about it a bit, whether it's young quarterbacks, whether it's COVID and empty stadiums. It's just it's continuing. I think the big question we have, and it'll continue on, what's the weather going to do this? I know the weather here in Chicago, it sucks again, or it's probably going to suck in the foreseeable future. So I'm curious if this holds serve or not.
Yeah, I think you're right, hitting it with no fans in the stadium. Offenses are able to communicate better, especially on the road. And I think that's why we're seeing so many of these road teams have success. They can go into opposing stadiums. They can hear all the line calls. The crowd's not affecting play calls, and it's not affecting young players. I also think we've got some really good young quarterbacks in the NFL, and we're sitting pretty. We saw Herbert this last Sunday play really well. Joe Burrow has been playing great for Cincinnati. I think this is the best quarterback talent that we've had 1 through 32 in a long time in the NFL. And I think sports books and odds makers are still taking a little bit longer to catch up to just how high scoring these games are. So a lot of factors here, but I still like the overs for this week.
I talked about this on Stock Up too. There was one 100-yard running back last week. One. And it was a 200-yard back in Dalvin Cook, right? Passing air, you're saving time, you're speeding the game up. There's a lot of different factors here, but yeah, I'm with you, and it doesn't seem like that part's going to change, although we'll see if the weather has a say. Okay, into the debate. By the way, last week's debate of Belichick versus Brady, my father, lifelong Jets fan, I put that debate on him. Very spirited response. You know what his response was? No one's going to win a Super Bowl. They both stink now. So that's the Jets.
Well, I mean, last week was a pretty good example that maybe they're both a little bit washed up right now. I mean, Belichick barely being able to squeak out a win against the Jets, who were trying to tank that game. And then Tom Brady, just a bad week for both those guys.
It was a good week for the Jets. Thank you, Bill Belichick. Finally, thank you. But so he was very animated by the last debate we had, which was a good one. This one, I've got to set this thing up because I can go a few different ways. But the debate we're going to have before we get into our picks, which first or second year player would you take? Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa. So, okay, now let me set up the parameters real quick because I want to lay some conversational things down. If I am drafting in fantasy football, okay, if we're talking fantasy, do you think Kyler Murray is going to be the guy for the foreseeable future? Because I do. We're not drafting for fantasy football, but if we were talking on a fantasy level, I feel like Kyler's got a chance to kind of own this division for the next 5 to 7 years.
Probably because you get that rushing floor, every single week. We saw 106 rushing yards this week from Kyler. Some of the other quarterbacks that we're going to talk about are mobile, but they're not really rushing threats. So in fantasy, those rushing yards are worth about 2.5 points more than what a passing yard is worth. So yeah, I agree. In fantasy football, Kyler's a top 3, 4, 5 option the rest of the way this season and beyond. Okay.
The other thing I want to bring up in this discussion, you can't just, and before we get our picks, I'm kind of just easing into this because I want to make sure I'm making the right one. So I have to talk through it emotionally.
Sure.
You have to pick an organization that's not going to let this quarterback down. As much as this is about talent, we're going to be fixated on wow, Justin Herbert looks like if you're creating a quarterback, that's what it looks like. Don't you have to have a conversation second to that of which organization isn't going to destroy this human being? Isn't that a really important part of this?
It is, and we're going to talk about some quarterbacks here that have gone to some pretty bad organizations, or at least historically bad organizations, right? With the Chargers, the Bengals, the Dolphins, and the Cardinals. I mean, these are a lot of teams that have really struggled over the last 2 decades. But I will say this, Adam. I do think the right quarterback in the right organization they can overcome it. I think Peyton Manning, right, going to the Indianapolis Colts, who were bad for a lot of years, he was able to change that team into a losing organization into a powerhouse year in, year out. So I do think there is one quarterback here that we're going to talk about that has that potential, and I'm excited to get to it.
All right, let's hear it. I want to hear you. I'm going to let you I want you to start us off because I've got an opinion on this. I think we're going to be different on this potentially. So lead the way, and then I will counter.
Yeah, so I think the most exciting quarterback of the group that we're going to talk about, at least first and second year quarterbacks, are Kyler Murray. He's the guy that I want to watch on Sundays. He's the guy that I want on my fantasy teams. He's electric. He's fantastic. A little bit like Lamar Jackson that way, where you just can't take your eyes off of him. That's actually not the quarterback that I would build around.
I'm there.
The one that I would build around.
We agree, by the way. So far, I am completely with you on that.
And that's not taking anything away from Kyler Murray, because I believe he's a franchise quarterback in his own right. So we're picking nits a little bit here, right? For me, it's Joe Burrow, because of what he's been able to do with that offensive line. Again, that organization. I don't think Zach Taylor, the head coach, is all that special. We saw 2 weeks ago against the Tennessee Titans. He had a brand new offensive line from week one. They had a bunch of guys that were injured and on the COVID reserve list. They were playing, the Tennessee Titans, who were in the AFC Championship game last year, and he whipped them. He looked fantastic. He looked like a veteran quarterback throwing the ball before the receivers were even making their breaks and making their cuts. I believe once they build up that offensive line, even a tiny bit, this is going to be one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in the league, because his combination of accuracy, anticipation, quickness, and then an overall confidence and exuberance that he has about him, that just you believe that he's going to make every single throw, that he's going to bring this team back no matter what the score is. I think he's the easiest to build around, and I also think he has the highest ceiling as well.
Okay, so he was my close second, and I could make a case in terms of overall argument that I would believe in him. But I'm going to go with Herbert. So, and I cover college. I would have punched myself in the groin if I heard myself saying this a year ago, okay? But, and this is why I love this discussion. Think about how different these guys are. Kyler obviously is different from pretty much anybody we've ever seen. A rushing threat. Tua, of course, is probably 6 feet tall. Lefty, not the biggest arm. Moves well. I think the injuries are a little bit of a concern with me, frankly, still with Tua. I love Tua. I want to see him stay healthy. I think the draft equity of the Dolphins that they've got coming up from the Texans, pretty appealing in this discussion. We're going to dive super deep into it. Burrow is awesome. And the only difference really, Burrow, I think, is more accurate, but the Herbert tools coming together in this way are, it's incredible. Right? There's been a handful of throws this year. We talked about this a little bit last week, that other than Josh Allen with his arm, I'm not sure there's another NFL player that can do this stuff, right? It's an odd comparison, but when you talk about guys who can literally make pretty much any throw, I'm shocked at how polished he is, because
he's like the refined version of Josh Allen.
Correct.
Already.
It's easier on the eyes, right? It's easier. And Josh Allen's been amazing. It's easier on the eyes. I also think, the point about Burrow is well said about give him a little line help. Look, T. Higgins looks like he's going to be good, but I think San Diego has some really nice weapons. They're going to keep surrounding him. I just think it's kind of scary when you have this kind of physical skill set, how good Herbert could become. When they took him, I did not feel that way. Okay. And I don't want to overreact to a relatively small sample size. The sample though is so dang overwhelming that it's hard not to get swept up in what he can do. Man, he had that 60-yard throw that he dropped in the bucket a couple of weeks back that I've rewatched probably 30, 40 times. It's a great discussion. I think in this instance though, and the Chargers find ways to Chargers themselves to death. So that's the part that scares me a little bit too, right? But the talent is there. It's just winning. Absolutely. So that there's another interesting part of that discussion.
I also think these guys are polar opposite personalities,
yes.
Right? I think Burrow's extremely confident, even a little brash. But Herbert he's an introvert. He likes to read a lot. He's quiet. He's got this big body about him, but he's kind of like a big teddy bear in some ways. So it's funny that the way that these guys are both coming out and playing ridiculously well. And I agree with you, Adam. When I saw Herbert at Oregon, this wasn't the same quarterback at all. And maybe what I missed when he was playing for the Ducks is he just didn't have any receiving weapons, yes. Right? So we saw him have to rely on his legs a lot, especially against Wisconsin in the last game of the season where he had 3 rushing touchdowns. We saw somebody who didn't always trust his receivers. And now that he's with the Chargers and he has weapons in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Hunter Henry and some good running backs, I think this is a scheme that does fit him well. So I think this is an interesting one. We have seen these quarterbacks before in the past start off really hot and then kind of struggle a little bit as the NFL catches up. That's something that I'm going to keep an eye on.
Yep.
I just can't get over Burrow's accuracy and the anticipation. It reminds me so much of a young Tony Romo and his playmaking ability and once he gets an offensive line like Romo did later in his career, I think he's going to be almost unstoppable.
Well, you know what's funny about this question as a whole, and we'll move to picks there shortly thereafter. It's like the opposite sentiment I had from the Brady Belichick, because we're kind of like, ugh, gross, but here's my guy, right? Like, like no, but here. This one, it's yes, all of them. Like if you're telling me, as from the fan of a quarterback team that's starved, hoping for a quarterback in the Jets, like you're telling me I could have any one of these guys, and I think we could have had pretty much any one of them at some point, I would be thrilled.
Let me ask you this. Of those 4 quarterbacks between Kyler, Burrow, Tua, and Herbert, which one do you have the least amount of confidence in?
I would probably have the most questions about Tua, because
I think I'm there as well.
I love Tua, but the arm isn't the same, the tools aren't the same, and man, it's not just the hip, it's the injuries he had. And I hope they're coaching him to stay upright, because he put himself in too many compromising positions. Sadly, it's probably an easy answer for me. But again, like if that's the consolation, give me the consolation. You know what I mean? Like I will take a Tua, and we could be very wrong about this. Again, this is why I think organizationally it matters so much, because don't screw these guys up is the goal. And I think, look, with a lot of them, with where they'll be drafting and everything else, they've got a chance. Like San Diego blowing games the way they have, in the long run, may not be a terrible thing, quite honestly.
No, and I was just thinking about Tua and how many other teams would prefer Tua right now. I mean, think about Chicago. What Chicago would do for Tua now would be unbelievable. They would give up basically anything to have a quarterback like Tua. I mean, even San Francisco, I think the Jimmy Garoppolo experiment might be running out there. Can you imagine Kyle Shanahan with somebody like Tua and his athleticism, getting out inside the pocket, running those zone stretch plays? Again, when we say we have the least amount of confidence in Tua of these 4 quarterbacks, it's not to take anything away from Tua, because I think both you and I think he's going to be a really good quarterback in the NFL.
By the way, we're probably sliding Kyler here a bit too. The guy is like a freak of nature, best fantasy player, electric, most fun to watch, like you said, has a chance, if he stays in the right offensive system and they keep surrounding him, to win this argument, like going away, potentially, like could be that guy.
I just think the scheme matters more, right? It's important that he stays in a Cliff Kingsbury, spread him out offense. I actually think like what Seattle's doing right now with Russell Wilson, that style of offense makes a lot of sense. But if this Cliff, experiment doesn't work out and they get an old ball coach in there who wants to run the ball and have him under center,
good luck.
Then I get a little worried.
Agreed. All right, so you are taking Burrow, which, by the way, I think is a great choice. I'm taking Herbert. I feel really good about all these guys. But, again, the opposite of the Brady Belichick discussion. Let's move to picks. Pick segments. Buys this week. Atlanta, Dallas. Oh, man, they were close. Kansas City and the New York Jets. Oh, my goodness. I need a breather as I chase down the number 1 pick for my franchise. I'm very happy to have the week off. And I am thrilled, by the way, as we do our picks, to start right at the place of just maximum discomfort for me. Colts at Titans. Titans are -2. Over under 48.5. I know where you're going to start. Phillip Rivers, right? The quarterback in on Hail Marys. Where do you start here?
I just will never trust Phillip Rivers again. As long as he's in the NFL, I'm not trusting him to cover a spread, especially not a divisional game on a short week. His arm is already dead. Giving him 4 days, break and then coming back and having to play. I don't trust him. I think Tennessee is still one of the better teams in the NFL. I know they have problems on defense and their pass rush is up and down, week to week. But I just think this team is one of the more well-balanced teams in the NFL. If they can run the ball on this Indianapolis defense, which is very good. They played Lamar Jackson great last week. They held him to 40 yards passing in the first half. I think it's going to be a challenge, but I think Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown, those guys are playing ridiculously well right now. I like the Titans to win and to cover on Thursday Night Football, which, by the way, this is a fantastic game. For us to get one of these divisional games, which, the winner of this will be leading the division after 10 weeks. It's a great Thursday night game.
Yes, and I'm going to go the other way here, and I'm ready for the ridicule, and it's not just to be stubborn, although I am stubborn. the Titans are kind of bleeding here a little bit too, right? Like the Bears are not playing well. The last month has not been particularly great. They lost to the Bengals. I don't want to say they're overrated. I just think that's such a corny, like podcasty thing to say. I just don't necessarily believe in them. And I think it's an interesting number. You know, the Colts actually ran the ball well last week. Averaged 5.3 yards per carry. They just didn't run in enough. The rhythm of the game was bizarre. Philip Rivers did Philip Rivers things. That's always the concern here. And yet I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna take the Colts. And okay, you can mark my words. If this does not go my way, and I know you're already thinking this probably isn't going to go my way, the Colts are in a 2-week ban. Okay, 2 week.
Only 2 weeks. I thought you were going to say like the rest of your life.
Oh no, I like pain.
Only 2 weeks.
Only 2 weeks. Yeah,
we'll be back by Thanksgiving. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Back by Thanksgiving. 2 weeks. Like I like pain. Okay, and I'm going to take it. I think it's a pretty good spot. And it's it's not a pro Philip Rivers thing. It's just watching the Titans. I don't know. It just seems a little bit off. But you will have to see. We still have the Philip Rivers factors to consider.
I'll give you a stat here that maybe will change your mind.
Oh, no.
The Colts in their last 7 games against an AFC opponent, 1-6 against the spread. Just not very good inside the conference right now. They play well when they're playing some NFC teams that are a little unfamiliar with them and their style of offense. But I think the conference has them figured out. I think this is going to be a 10 to 12 point win by the Titans on Sunday.
By the way,
or on Thursday. Excuse me, on Thursday night football.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is a really good Thursday night game. But there's a fascinating. You talk about conference and even divisional stats. There's a game coming up that I'm excited to talk about when it comes to just beating up on the division. We'll get there momentarily, but not here though. Bills at Cardinals. Cardinals are 2.5 point favorite, over under 56. I mentioned it earlier. This feels like Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, 2014, right? 56, man. That is a big NFL total. Super fun game. If the teams that we saw last week play like that and the quarterbacks play like they did, then I think this 56 is not going to be enough, clearly.
Yeah, I think this is maybe my favorite game of the weekend, right? Josh Allen and Kyler Murray. I think we could have a fun debate. Who's the better runner?
Yeah.
Kyler's definitely quicker. Josh Allen is bigger, stronger, can make plays after contact. So I'm looking for this to be one of those ones, 35 to 31. I think it's going to be an incredible game, and it's actually a very important game for both teams, right? Arizona is trying to climb up the division in the NFC West, trying to catch Seattle. They do have the tiebreaker over there. Buffalo is trying to stay ahead of Miami, who is quickly playing some really good football. So neither team can really afford a loss on Sunday. But I'm still taking Buffalo. I know their defense hasn't been good this season, and they've really struggled to get many stops. I believe in Sean McDermott that he's eventually going to figure it out, that they're eventually going to get a couple takeaways, a couple stops in this game. It's not going to be many. I fully expect Arizona to score into the 30s, but I just have a little bit more faith in their defensive talent than I do Arizona. So I like Buffalo to win and cover, and I like the over as well. I think this is going to be a really high-scoring, fun game in Arizona.
I like the over as well. However, we're going to go our separate ways in the game. For the second game in a row. I like Buffalo in a similar spot actually a week ago, but I like the Cardinals here. But Buffalo beyond that cover, been rough. 1-4 against the spread the last 5. Hasn't played the same way that we saw them start. Arizona 5-3 against the spread. The number here is number 1. It's Kyler Murray. Ran for 100 yards last week. My only hesitation, and it's really not because it's sort of the brand, this is the way it goes. But, number 1 is my key number because Kyler Murray is going to be asked to do a lot. The running game is questionable. I really like their receivers. A guy like Christian Kirk. There's just so many different options to beat you with. But there's such a reliance on Kyler Murray being great. I think he will be great. But if he is not, it's potentially problematic. But that's certainly the case for Buffalo as well, is it not? If Josh Allen does Josh Allen-y things, then they're not going to win. So I think this game, if both guys are on, again, from a sheer entertainment standpoint, I think it could be just an awesome football game. It could feel a lot like a college game.
First of all, this is a fun, under-the-radar MVP game, right? If either Josh Allen or Kyler Murray, they win this game and they put up, let's say, 400 total yards and 3 touchdowns, we're going to see their odds jump. So, and whoever loses this game, probably going to see a pretty big decrease. So keep an eye on that. I also want to mention one quick stat on Buffalo before we move on. They've won 7 of their last 9 games. Their only losses have come, against Kansas City this year in that slop fest, rainy, snowy game earlier this season. And then they played the Titans on a Tuesday night. And, for whatever reason, they just didn't show up that night in Tennessee. It happens. It was a weird COVID week. Other than that, they've been really good against some big-time opponents. We saw them beat New England a couple weeks ago. They played really well against Seattle. They beat the Raiders, who are starting to look like a playoff team as well. So Buffalo, 7-2 in their last 9 games. I still like them quite a bit.
Another game as we move on with a total, it's darn near close to 55.5. Seahawks at Rams. Rams are a 2-point favorite. The over, Seattle has hit it in 6 of their 8 games. Rams are 4-4 against the spread, off a bye. I alluded to earlier of them beating up the division. It's the NFC East plus the Bears. That is not a compliment, basically, who the Rams have gotten fat and healthy off of. So with that in mind, what vibe do you have here? Because I do think it's a pretty interesting point spread, and I will say the odds makers clearly aren't loving what they're seeing from the Seahawks, and defensively, it was a bit of a mess, so a little bit understandable.
Yeah, I always have a hard time betting against Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. I just feel like they find ways to win more often than not. But I'm really nervous about this defense. They're about to give up not only the most passing yards in NFL history, but they're about to give up 1,000 more than the next team ever in NFL history. They're just that bad. I don't see them getting any better. And listen, Sean McVay has had a lot of success against Pete Carroll as of late. They won 5 of their last 6 games at home against Seattle. This is a team that's won 5 straight road games. I know the travel's not a big deal, and I know home field advantage isn't a big deal. But I just don't know if I don't know if the Seahawks have a lot of answers for Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, that rushing attack. Listen, Adam, I hate betting on Jared Goff. There's nothing I hate more. Well, actually, that's not true. I hate betting on Phillip Rivers, but Jared Goff is like number 2 on that list. But again, I'm taking Sean McVay here to figure it out on offense. I'm looking to them to score 30, 34 points here and beat Seattle and to hand Seattle their 3rd straight loss.
I also hate betting Jared Goff, and I'm going to do it here and join you. So I bet, by the way, your 2 quarterbacks you hate betting on the most in the stretch of like 3 games. So there you go. The number I wrote down, 2,897, the passing yards the Seahawks have allowed. It's the most by far, as you've mentioned. Jamal Adams, as a Jets fan, is a really interesting situation here. Amazing pass rusher. He came back, right, after being off while he's yelling at his teammates. Not bitter at all. But the problem is he does not make you a team that's better in coverage. He could hopefully generate a pass rush that can make a quarterback, throw an interception, fumble, sack, etc. He does some things incredibly well. But his presence does not help if you're not getting to the quarterback. So if they get to Jared Goff, this could be a problem. But the problem is it just doesn't feel like they're going to do it. And this feels like a Rams game where they can get comfortable and that offense can go and those receivers can run their cross. I mean, when this offense gets comfortable and it's done so against really bad teams, it's really good. Like it could be really, really good. So I'm kind of with you. I don't think the Seahawks are trending well. I don't think that defense is just not something that's going to fix itself with the personnel that they have. This is probably one of my favorite plays of the week in the Rams in -2. I'm probably not. Do you like anything in the total here? I'm probably going to leave it alone. It's
high. Yeah, it's a little high. Probably the only other thing I wanted to mention in this game, if you're a real football nerd, watch that DK Metcalf against Jalen Ramsey matchup. Yeah. Oh, that's going to be so much fun. 2 of the best athletes in the NFL going up against one another. I'm really excited to see that one. But as for the point total, probably leaving that alone. We're going to take the Rams here -2. Yeah, we're going to feel pretty good.
All right, throw that in our big parlay. We'll
there you
throw
go.
That at the end. That's an agreement, finally. Okay, back to bringing back our debate together here. Chargers at Dolphins, fun game. Another really fun game. Not the greatest week, but this stretch of games really fun. Dolphins -2.5. Over under 48. Look, the Chargers could be 6-2. Okay, and I just want to read you these numbers: 357, 315. Sounds like I'm giving out my phone number or the start of a phone number. That is how many points per game in their losses the Chargers have lost by. I mean, they should be winning games. The 1-point loss against Denver was a cover for me. I was very happy with that. But when they lose spectacularly. So with that as the backdrop, what do you do here against one of the hottest teams in the NFL?
First and foremost, I want to thank the NFL for giving us just an awful 1 p.m. slate of games on Sunday, because they all know we're going to be watching the Masters instead.
Yes.
Right? It's going to be happening. So what they did is they loaded up the 4 o'clock slate, and that's great because, man, it's going to be such a fun afternoon. And again, this game between the Chargers and Dolphins is one that I'm really excited about because of those quarterbacks. I like Miami quite a bit. I think, listen, we could have a conversation. If you believe that Kansas City, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore are the top 3 teams in the conference, in the AFC, how far down do we go before we say Miami's the next best one? Because I think you could make an argument they're just as good as Tennessee or Cleveland or Las Vegas. So I'm all in on this Miami team. I like them -2.5. I'm getting them, less than a field goal in this game. Absolutely love it. The Chargers are without a doubt going to keep this game close. But Miami, they have the 4th-ranked scoring defense in the NFL. Look for Brian Flores to make this tough on Justin Herbert. Look for him to blitz him, to send some disguise coverages and all that kind of stuff to just get him off balance. I like Miami to win at home.
I actually, it's Miami 6-2 against the spread, by the way. They've been great. I like the over here. I'm going to stay off a side because I think if the Chargers can find a way to not stumble horrifically, which I can't say that they can, in this game, young quarterbacks may be prone to turnovers, which they actually lead to potentially positive points, right? Like, this is a high-octane, high-volume game. I think the total feels a little bit low. I think these guys are going to score. I do respect Miami's defense a little bit. I think Herbert's going to play well. And again, the one thing I don't want is Herbert to throw like an interception on the 3-yard line, right? Going in. On his own 3-yard line, I'll take that. So if I had to pick a side, I'm with you on the Dolphins, even though I am a contrarian and this feels like a spot to be a potential contrarian. I just don't trust the Chargers. So I am going to take the total. I like over here. Doesn't that total seem low? Does it seem low to you? Am I losing my mind a bit?
It is a little bit low, but I think, again, because Miami's defense is so good and because it's 2 rookie quarterbacks and because they can tend to be pretty volatile from week to week, I think that's why it's low. I'm just really glad you didn't pick the Chargers here, because if you bet on Phillip Rivers and Anthony Lynn in the same week, we would have to have a conversation. There's just no way I was going to let that happen as a friend.
I did say, like, Justin Herbert, like, I signed off on him being the greatest quarterback to ever play football, so I have to like hold strong on that. But
no, it's just, let's get him a better coach, let's get him a better offensive line, and we'll be fine.
Agreed.
This is not a great situation in terms of him actually finding ways to win and close out games. We both shouldn't trust Anthony Lynn. Neither should you guys listening to this show right now.
No, I tend to agree with you there. Again, if you're going to throw interceptions, quarterbacks in this game, young quarterbacks, throw them, do them really with a lot of effort and make sure that they're gone the other way for pick sixes. That's what I want in this game if we're going to turn the ball over. And finally, speaking of turning the ball over, Buccaneers -6 at Panthers, over under 50.5. That pass that Tom Brady threw, and I don't even need to say anymore because you know which one I'm talking about, was me circa 2005 throwing a wiffle ball in my backyard, right? That was one of the worst passes I've ever seen at any level of football. I've watched a lot of bad football across multiple levels. I think in Pee Wee football, that quarterback would be benched. So with that said, what do you think of this game?
So I think a lot of people are going to be expecting the Buccaneers to bounce back after a really bad game. And I think we're going to see that line even move higher up as we get closer to game day. I think people are going to be parlaying Tampa Bay money line. They're going to be putting them in teasers. So I expect that line to jump maybe to 7.5. And I'm all on Carolina. Gave me all the Carolina stock in this one. I'm not sure they're going to win outright. I've got a good feeling, but I'm loving the +6 right now. I think Carolina is a team as an underdog. They're really sneaky good. They should have beat Kansas City last week. They made some mental mistakes on that very last drive of the game. They're a good team and they're well coached. And I think their offense, we saw earlier in the year, they can put up points against this Tampa Bay defense. They've got a ton of weapons. I like Carolina +6. I even like Carolina money line here, considering the value. I don't trust this Tampa Bay team. There's way too many flaws with this Tampa Bay team. I know the ceiling is so high. I just don't trust the Buccaneers yet.
The status of Christian McCaffrey here is pretty interesting because it's now, a shoulder injury, which they've been a little bit cryptic about. I'm not sure, as good as he is, it changes a ton of what they're going to do, right? Like, it doesn't for me. The thing I struggle with, by the way, the number that just is hilarious, Tom Brady, 5 interceptions against New Orleans this year and 2 interceptions against everybody else, has just been awful in those 2 games. I worry that this line of Buccaneers -6 is just the whole, natural Brady respect, right? Like, okay, bad game.
Exactly what I think.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't like that. I do like the over, and I'm over heavy, and I'm not usually total heavy in my picks, but this is another one where I think the Panthers, whether McCaffrey plays or not, are going to score. Bridgewater, for the most part, has been pretty good. I like those wide receivers, and I think the Bucs are going to play better offensively. I don't know how clean of a game it's going to be overall. Tom Brady is going to play better. Whether they win or not, we'll have to see. I'm kind of torn on that line because historically, I'm kind of the person you're talking about. Bucs -6. I just can't. I don't know where that confidence emerges from, right? And I don't share that exact same confidence, but I do like points here. Another total in the 50s that I think it's going to go over with, and I'm hoping that good weather stays, right?
Yeah, I think we could certainly see like a 31-27 type of game here, right? I think both these offenses have, explosive passing attacks when they want to. These are maybe the best group of receivers in a single game with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin. I mean, both these teams are absolutely loaded. I think we're going to see some high-scoring games. I'm going to go, before Sunday. I'm going to look at the first half total. I might bet the over there because I think we're going to get fireworks in this game from the very start.
Yeah, me too. All right, so we go our separate ways a little bit. We're in an agreement a little bit, and we're kind of just running our own bets, like totals, sides, etc., which is fine. A little mix of everything's here. We've got some things to work with our big parlay. Let's move on to picks. Now, disclaimer: we've got COVID, right? College, NFL, like every game feels like now needs an asterisk next to it, or at least the point spreads do. So let's move on to picks. Let's start. Jacksonville Jaguars at Packers. Packers are -14. Over under is 52 on the Packers. What do you have?
I like the Packers to cover this spread. I know it's huge, and I know these don't get covered very often. Jacksonville just doesn't have the talent on defense to keep up with this offense. I'm looking for Aaron Jones to have a big game. So I like the Packers -14. I like the under here, I think, a little bit too. I just don't think Jacksonville's going to be able to score much. What do you?
I got the same thing. I'd love to be cute here with the rookie quarterback of Jacksonville, and I hope Jacksonville wins. So Trevor Lawrence, Jets, etc. Right? My rooting interest would be Jacksonville somehow pull this off. I just don't see it. I think the Packers are really good. Offense is really good. I think this could be lopsided. And if I were going to do a lean, I'd lean under here.
All right, Washington at Detroit. Matt Stafford, I believe, is going to play in this game. He was knocked out of the last one. Should be good to go against Washington. Alex Smith is back. Lions -3.5. The total is 46.5. Who do you have?
I don't have a play here. The Stafford situation, both of these teams, injury at quarterback last week with Washington, their situation there's just too many variables in this game for me to have. It's just not a very watchable, sexy game. You may feel otherwise, and I hope you have a side here, but I just don't feel great about it.
Yeah, I'm going to actually take Washington here. I actually like the Washington money line here. I thought Alex Smith was pretty good last week, and I think with a full week of getting him ready, that defensive line is good. I think they should be able to dominate up front. I like the Washington money line. I like this to be an under game. Don't expect a ton of points in this one.
Texans at Browns. Browns -3, over under 53.5. It looks like Nick Chubb is back, which is I think a huge addition to them. Obviously, who do you have?
I do not trust Baker Mayfield at all, especially not coming off a bye, coming off of the COVID list where he couldn't practice. I like the Houston Texans here. I like Deshaun Watson. I think they're going to find ways to put up points here. I like Texans to win this game.
I do too. I think it's a bit of a funky line. I don't have the trust, as you mentioned. I think the Texans are going to score. It's another game where I'd potentially back the over as well because I think it could be pretty wild. But the Texans are so much more capable than their record indicates. Now, the results are the results, right? But this is a perfect game where the Texans against a team that just, Texans find a way to win. I think win it by a touchdown.
All right, let's get to an NFC least game. The Philadelphia Eagles -3 over the New York Giants. So who do you trust more between Carson Wentz and Daniel Jones? That's really what it comes down to.
The answer is
who do you like?
The answer to that question is no. No, I like the Giants though. I think that Philly taste from that Sunday night game or that primetime game is still in my mouth. I think the Giants are doing some things pretty well. I think the defense is playing a lot better. They have to protect their quarterback, which is a huge concern. But I just think Carson Wentz is broken. And while that's not a ringing endorsement for his competition at quarterback, I think this is a pretty good spot for the Giants.
I have 3 rules when it comes to betting. Don't bet on Phillip Rivers, don't bet on Anthony Lynn coach teams, and don't bet on Jason Garrett coach teams. There's no way that I'm taking the Giants here. I like the Eagles to win by double digits in this one.
Oh, man. Makes me sad. Broncos at Raiders. Raiders -5.5, over under 52. I think this has a chance to be a bit more of a pretty fun game, actually. Again, another total in the 50s.
I like the Broncos to cover. I like the Raiders to win. These are games that traditionally come down to the last play or two. I don't think these teams are all that different, despite the records being 2-3 games difference. I like this game to be close. I'm taking the Broncos +5.5. Who do you like?
I like the Broncos as well. It's an interesting point spread. This is an interesting line. I think people are getting excited about the Raiders and probably for good reason. But I think offensively still, Jerry Jeudy's going to be a monster. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. He's going to be a monster if he can eliminate the drops. We're starting to see that now. I like the Broncos here. I actually think the money line here is not a bad play if you can find it. I do. I think they're very, very live.
Maybe some Zach Wilson to Jerry Jeudy next year. That would be a lot of fun.
Yes, 100%.
That's for our college football fans out there that know who Zach Wilson is at BYU. How about this one? The backup San Francisco 49ers team, the whole offense been decimated by injuries. They're 9.5-point underdogs against the New Orleans Saints on Sunday in Week 10. Who do you like in this?
I just can't get cute with this. I'm going Saints. I just think the 49ers have been decimated. Watching that Packers game was eye-opening. I just can't make a case to make the points. And look, we had a conversation about the Steelers and Dallas last week, and we saw it. That was competitive. This isn't the same game, obviously. It's just I can't do it. I think the Saints are onto something here. I think this could get really, really ugly.
I believe in Kyle Shanahan, so I'm going to take the 9.5 points. As soon as I see a sports book that has it at 10, I'm jumping on it because I just think that's too many points for a team that's this well coached. I get what you're saying. I know the Saints are maybe Super Bowl contenders. I just think, again, Kyle Shanahan's a really, really good coach.
Totally. No, totally. I wanted to do that against I had that angle lined up, and then I just stayed away with that Thursday night game because it was such a mess. So, no.
That's probably the right play. Is just stay away for this one because this game certainly could come down to the last play or two because it may be a little bit of a letdown after the Saints' big win last week.
It does. It feels like I'm a square player here, right? Because I think everybody and their family and their family's family is going to be on the favorite here. So I'm going to do it, though. What could go wrong? Ravens -7.5 at the Patriots, 43.5. Patriots are bad, right? We can agree. That was pretty gross. It hurts watching Cam Newton throw the ball. I know he's a little banged up, but man, oh man, what side you got?
I kind of like the Patriots here. The Ravens have some big injuries with Ronnie Stanley down at their left tackle. They've been really struggling to throw the ball. No Calais Campbell, who is out of this game due to a calf injury. One thing New England has been able to do a little bit is run the ball. I just think this game is going to be close. I don't think Baltimore is as good as they were last year. Again, they've had a lot of problems throwing the ball this year. The Patriots have a really good secondary. I expect this to be a close game, so I'm taking the Patriots +7.5 on Sunday.
I'm going to actually take the under here, and it's a low under. I think this is going to be a grotesque football game. I think it's going to be a game where the clock is running constantly. Again, I mentioned Cam. Watching him was kind of painful. They should be able to run the ball maybe a little bit, depending on what we see. I don't have a great feeling on either side because I can't say my confidence in the Ravens is at an all-time high, even though they just, of course, bested me and Phillip Rivers. But good luck with this game. There are a lot of really fun games that are going to feel like college football games. This is like the opposite of that. essentially, is what we have here.
Yeah, it might feel like an Army-Navy game, though. Just a ton of inside runs with the quarterback, some wishbone stuff. So if you like that kind of college football, maybe
yes,
you'll enjoy
yeah,
it.
it's going to be done at like 2:55, 250, like Central Time, obviously. Like that game should absolutely fly.
Yeah. How about our Monday Night Football game? The Minnesota Vikings on the road are 2.5-point favorites over the Chicago Bears. Who do you have in this one, Adam?
I'm going to take the Bears. This is a funky line, okay? And the weather's going to get weird again. I think this is a team that can contain Dalvin Cook. I don't think – and by the way, he has been unbelievable to watch. Someone needs to figure out how to tackle him. But if you can do that, then I think you have a really good chance to put him, and you take Kirk Cousins, you put him outside in a windy situation. I don't think it's going to go well. So the Bears haven't played well. People here are freaking out. I heard a call this morning, by the way, and I know this is supposed to be rapid fire. They said if we hire Jim Harbaugh, okay, this is on my way in. If we hire Jim Harbaugh, is he going to be okay taking Justin Fields as his quarterback? And I about drove off the road. Amazing phone call. I love sports radio. So I will, those things won't happen, but I will take the Bears.
Oh, man, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? I mean, Harbaugh, after just completely failing in Michigan, going to Chicago and failing again, that'd be great. How about our last game? We've got a little bit of a disclaimer here because there's some COVID stuff. Ben Roethlisberger is on the COVID reserve list, as well as Vance McDonald and Jalen Samuels. We saw today that some Cincinnati guys were sent home from practice. The Bengals are 7.5 point favorites, or excuse me, the Bengals are 7.5 point underdogs. Who do you like?
Real quick, your pick, by the way, for Bears, Vikings.
I'm glad that you reminded me. Sorry.
Jim Harbaugh, Justin Fields radio conversation I know is excellent and real. So would probably distracting. Fair enough. My bad.
Here's what was happening. My brain was spinning. The gears were turning. I was trying to think of a teaser in my head with Chicago, trying to tease them up to like 7.5 in this one. But I like Chicago to win. If you can tease them, maybe you tease them with Green Bay. Maybe you tease them with Tampa Bay. Get that Tampa Bay line down to even. I like that quite a bit.
And I'll move on to the Bengals at Steelers. We have the disclaimer up. I can't bet this game, right? With Big Ben involved, with all the COVID things. And this has been truly like some advice to people is wait and gather information. I know at the collegiate level, it's been unbelievably valuable, right? To figure out who's going to play. It's a little different in the NFL. I'm going to avoid this one, though, just because there's so many important variables. We just have no idea at the time that we're recording.
I'm gonna tell you this. Last year, we saw a guy by the name of Duck Hodges beat the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. I don't need to know if Roethlisberger's playing in this game or not. They're gonna beat Cincinnati. It's what they do. Pittsburgh dominates them. It's at Pittsburgh. There's gonna be fans there. It's Joe Burrow's first game against the Steelers defense. He's gonna turn the ball over 2-3 times after I just got done bragging him up. I think this is gonna be just a terrible Joe Burrow game, and we can make fun of my Burrow over Herbert argument from earlier in the show.
I almost ran into the same thing, like our quarterbacks, right? Hopefully they cut these up and it sounds we can be glowing about our quarterbacks and not have to pick against them like 30 minutes later. Be interesting to see. Seriously, with this game, it'll be really interesting to see who plays. I would probably lean the way that you do. All right, so our big...
I was going to say, well, really quickly, if this is a game that Burrow wins or looks really, really good in, can you imagine the hype surrounding him then? If he beats the 8-0 Pittsburgh Steelers with that bad offensive line, we're going to be having some different conversations next week. It won't be Burrow against Herbert. It'll be Burrow against Deshaun Watson and Dak Prescott and maybe some Patrick Mahomes. No,
yes.
I'm just kidding. It'll be different.
That's for next week's show. You're teasing. I'm with you. I mean, he has a chance to do it, man. He's going to be really, really special. It's a matter of how special. So, okay. So our parlay, our big weekly parlay, we've got the over. By the way, these are the picks that we agree on. And we went our separate ways about a bit, but we still have things we like. Buffalo, Arizona over. Okay. We like the Rams to cover. We like the Packers to cover. Texans money line, Denver with the points, and Chicago with the points. And it actually is a bit painful, $25 to win $14.69. So if it comes down to Chicago, by the way, we're going to be like limping toward the last leg of that parlay. Matt Nagy.
You could be bet. I'd be hedging.
That's
on
a hedge.
There's no difference. I'm hedging.
That's a hedge opportunity. So as we get ready to wrap things up here, any parting thoughts on the picks or this week as a whole, or just anything else you're looking to see?
Yeah, I think this is a really fun Sunday. Now, again, the 1 o'clock slate's not great, but buckle in for that 4 o'clock slate all the way through Sunday Night Football. I think this is going to be a great week of football. We're going to learn a lot. I think we'll have a pretty good idea after this week, which divisions are going to be won by which teams. Maybe we'll get some updates on some MVP awards, some Rookie of the Year stuff. I'm really excited for Week 10.
Yeah, me too. I think specifically a couple of these games. Bills, Cardinals, Seahawks, Rams. I think they're going to be fun. Basically the opposite of New England, Baltimore. So I think there's a couple of fun games here. Young quarterback play too. Theme that we'll carry out through the show is going to be off the charts. So you guys could check out our podcast here weekly. Wherever you get your podcast, please share it, comment, specifically on the debate. I'd love to know what you guys think when it comes to the young quarterbacks. And if we're right, if we're wrong, tell us. We could take it. So we will be working on, I'll be doing stock up, stock down. Marcus, what else do you have going on here with the game day?
Yeah, as always, we have betting trends that come out on Tuesday morning, the 5 that you need to know before you make your bets. And then I have a weekly mailbag that comes out on Wednesday. As always, you can send your questions to me at Marcus_Mosher. You can send them to us at the game day. We want to know what you guys want to talk about.
Awesome. Look forward to that. For Marcus, I am Adam Kramer. We will talk to you guys next week.